7 years.
I can totally, if that happens, what happens next. We can totally go there. And how old are you?
8 and 4.
8 and 4. And I have a 4 and a 2-year-old. And you
mine
have,
are really old.
but your grandchildren.
Yeah. I have grandchildren,
Yeah.
twins who are 4.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's
all in the
exciting.
company, right?
The world of twins.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, so go ahead. I just need to.
Yeah, come on in. So this is going to be really informal. We're just going to, well, we've got a few things we want to go through in terms of content, but feel free to ask questions. We'll chat afterwards as well as needed. So the first thing that we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about is, what are some of the stressors do you think the kids in the age ranges that we're talking about tonight, which is our younger crowd, right? What are some of the stressors do you think that they face? Maybe different from what we might have faced when we were kids at that age. Some of the things you see your kids stressing about, yeah.
I find that it started younger with peer pressure, like
Peer
they're already
pressure.
trying to fit in with other kids. Like,
Okay,
yeah.
so fitting in, yeah.
Wanting to do everything right professionally.
Absolutely, and it's funny how even little people can be really worried about that stuff, right?
Yeah. And we like, even when we do, be so careful to not give them that message, some of them, they just like, I didn't get A+ in my, or whatever.
Yeah.
They're like, 4 stars.
Absolutely, yeah.
I know.
Did you have that?
No, it was just that. My son cares about his clothes.
Wow.
Like in what way?
He won't wear half the things in his closet, just for whatever reason. If anybody ever comments on anything he wears, positive or negative, he will not wear it again.
So he's really sensitive
He
to
just
that.
wants to blend in.
So I'm going to guess some of us have super feelers in the room. Yeah, see the nods, right? Our kids who just feel big when they feel, right? And they just are more affected possibly, right? For no reason other than personality, right? Yeah.
So any other stressors that kind of come to mind when you're thinking about our little people?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think they also have more stresses with parents that are working and trying to balance the demands of their
Yeah.
time with them and work
Sure.
time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Being parents of young kids can be pretty chaotic, lots of stressors, lots of competing priorities, right? That we have to balance. Anything else? Yeah.
Health issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Many families are dealing, and as well as other types of environmental issues, finances, move. I remember when my kids were 10 and 7, we moved across the country, and that was a huge stressor in our family at that particular point, for sure. Yeah.
Technology.
Absolutely.
Our 8-year-old is mad at me because I don't buy her an iPad. Her friends have one.
Isn't it?
It was dolls for me at that age.
So yeah, so absolutely. So
different.
think about that. I mean, our little people have never been in a world where there wasn't technology, where there wasn't an immediate answer to something that somebody had a question for. And that's a different psyche. Like that's a whole different way of thinking than we experienced as young kids, right? So yeah, absolutely. Technology. And hard to know what the stress is like when they're smaller, but the stress continues to grow as they get older. And as parents, we need to be really aware of, understanding, gosh, I can hardly keep up with the terms of technology, let alone how to use that stuff. You know all that stuff, right, John? Okay, so we brainstormed a few sources of stress as well, so I think we've named probably all of them. So lots of relational kinds of stressors that we might see at home. Transitions and changes. I mean, for us, a move cross country was a huge transition and change, but lots of kids are really reactive to various types of transitions. Even just getting ready to go to bed is a transition that can be really stressful for a lot of kids. That's your experience too, yeah. Environment, healthy, fun things to do. And when you said about, busy families, it's hard sometimes to find time to do just fun stuff, right? Or just to find time to go out and play in the backyard or to go down to the park and get that balance. Technology we talked about, competing demands for parents and kids. I think we hit on that one as well. Unless we hit on that. Fast-paced living. Gosh, I don't know how many of you either are commuters or you know someone who's a commuter, or you just are fairly close in the county but you still have a significant drive every day. I mean, that takes a toll in terms of our stress levels and our time, right? And that's a big factor as well. And then anybody got kids with homework yet? Is that stressful?
Very.
Yeah, what's stressful about it?
The fact that you have to fit it in.
Yeah, okay.
It's hard to begin with.
Yep.
And you don't always understand what it is exactly
The
that.
fact that you can't do it.
Because you have
There's a show about like grade 4, like everything, yeah.
Figure out grade 3
Yeah.
headaches.
I know, but sometimes they can't explain to us what they're supposed to do, and we're trying to surmise based on some, yeah.
And then it's competing homework between,
Sorry, that's my computer talking.
between different ages, and like in my home, my husband's a commuter, so it's almost like being a single parent.
Absolutely.
I have to make sure their dinner's ready, and we have a dog, and there's a dog letting out, and who needs help with homework, and the dinner is bubbling over, and shoot, third night without a bath, guess you know.
That's my next one.
That's our second
Put
neighbor.
my stress on that.
Yeah, absolutely,
And it turns out we're not robots too, we feel too, right? Yeah.
absolutely. Another homework comment?
Sorry, I was gonna say not getting homework.
Not getting homework. Oh, so having something to do in the evening that would be more,
Well, it's not that, it's as they get older, right, I know this is for the younger kids too, but it seems to not be instilled anymore, like the spelling lessons and doing all those things, so like not having that to do, and then they are struggling with things, and it's very frustrating to be like, well, it wasn't said in the first place, so then all of a sudden you have a teacher that has a lot of homework, and then,
okay, so finding that balance.
yeah. and-
Yeah, absolutely. Or different grade levels, just sometimes there's different expectations when
Yeah.
kids move from one grade to another. Yeah, absolutely. Any other comments on that one? Yeah.
We are trying to help my son with his homework, and then it's like, no, that's not how my teacher, that's not the method
Right.
my teacher said I should do. So,
That's right, because you can't possibly do it the way the teacher did. That's right. But that's true, and then what do you do? Like, your way of thinking through a math problem might be quite different than how the teacher might have explained it, right? And so it is a big stressor. Absolutely, when the child's having a meltdown because they can't do the homework, but you can't explain it to them because
And they just wanna get it right.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Okay, so there's some sources of stress for little people in the classroom as well. So transitions and changes at school for lots of kids. Transition from one year to another is a big stressor. I don't know how many of your kids were pretty stressed before they came to school in September. That's a big adjustment for lots of small kids especially. Fear of making mistakes, we've talked about that one. Too much or too little stimulation. Kids are different, and any classroom is going to have a huge mix of kids in terms of, some kids like quiet and don't need a lot of clutter on the walls, and other kids need to be upregulated and have that stimulation. So trying to find that balance for teachers can be very challenging at times. Feeling different from peers, and we talked about that one. Making friends fitting in, we talked about that. And then frustration with challenging work. As the grades start to get, higher into primary, then we're getting into, more challenging work. And some kids start to struggle a little bit, and they might not have struggled earlier, but start to struggle. And so that can be a challenge for them as well.
Mine is ADHD, so that's fine homework.
Yeah, so, attention problems, absolutely. It kind of piles up, doesn't it? Because there's lots of,
It takes 5 minutes, it takes a half an
competing
hour.
demands. Yeah, absolutely, I hear you. Okay, so what we're gonna spend most of our time tonight on is talking about then how do we help support our kids to regulate their emotions, manage their emotions, deal with their emotions, whatever words you want to use. We use the word regulate, but there's lots of ways of looking at that. But that's really about what we want to focus on, and I hope that works for you. But before we jump into that, I'm going to talk a little bit about this model. Now, Dan Siegel, if you ever get a chance to do a quick YouTube search him out and just hand model of the brain. And so what he talks about is really interesting. So he says, okay, everybody take your hand and make it into a fist. Take your thumb and put it in, and then bring your fingers over the top. Okay, if I was to face this way, I got it right? Sometimes I have not very problems. Okay, so if I was to do it this way, that would be my brain. And we teach this to kids, okay? So the bottom part of the brain, to make this really simplistic and quick, because we're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but the bottom part of the brain, the central nervous system, this is sort of the basic, most ancient part of the brain. This is what regulates breathing, it regulates heartbeat. We need that to live. If we didn't have that part of the brain functioning, we wouldn't be here. That's very, very basic. It's called the reptilian brain, the very basic part of the brain. And then we move into our thumb. So this is what we call the limbic system, the limbic part of the brain. How many of you have a pet at home? Absolutely. Do pets have emotions? Absolutely, right? So we know that this is the emotional part of the brain. It stores memories. Emotions and memories go hand in hand. How many of you have seen Pixar? Is that the movie? What's it called?
Oh, Inside Out.
Inside Out. Pixar Inside
Yay.
Out. Okay, so all of those little balls that were running around that were memories, and they were all attached two events and memories together, right? So that's an emotion.
And the emotion was attached to each memory.
Yeah, that's
Remember?
right. That's
Yeah,
what
and
I
when
say.
sadness touched the memory.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, so that's the limbic system. So
Talk more
the
about that.
limbic system, that's that sort of basic emotion is sort of the next generation in terms of brain development. So we would call that sort of the emotional part of the brain where many, many organisms have emotions. For us, those emotions are huge drivers. That's what drives fight, flight, or freeze. We're all still wired to run away from tigers. If we had a tiger walk in this room, we would all have immediate emotion that's going to take over our thinking brain because we need to respond, right? And we need to not spend time thinking, we need to move, we need to do something. Now some people are going to run, some people are going to freeze, and some people are going to fight. They're going to have different potential reactions because those memories that we have stored cause us potentially to respond in different ways. But that's the seat of emotion. When emotion is firing, that takes over. And lots of your kids, I'm sure, you can remember a time where they've had a meltdown. Ring a bell for anybody? Okay. Or yourself, because as adults we're not going to talk about our own meltdowns, but you know, we've all had them. Yeah. So that's when emotion is really firing. So the top of the brain, sort of what we call the upstairs part of the brain, when Dan Siegel talks about the upstairs part of the brain, the cortex, all of this part, the front part behind our forehead, all of this is the thinking part of the brain, the judgment part, the planning part. This has to come online in order for us to regulate those emotions. When our emotions are firing, what happens is we can, what he calls, flip our lid. So it all becomes about the emotion then. No, we're good. Thank you very much. It becomes about the emotion as opposed to how to regulate the emotion, how to think through that emotion, how to plan, how to rationalize, because you can't rationalize out of an emotion, right? It doesn't work very well.
No matter how hard we try, it just doesn't work.
Right. So we teach this to our kids, and we're starting to do a lot more of that, so the kids can understand how their brains work, and they can begin to understand that it is possible to start to regulate emotions if we understand how all of these things work together. Now, do you want to jump in?
No, it's good.
On that? Good. Okay. So self-regulation, when we're talking about regulating, tonight we're focusing in on the emotional component, but we all know, and this is Schenker's work at York University, we all know that we can't really regulate our emotions very well if we're not regulated physiologically. If we're tired, if we're hungry, if you don't have good sleep the night before, we tend to be more reactive. Kids tend to be highly reactive, many kids, if they're hungry, if they're tired. We all know that.
I am too. Like, I'm tired.
Well, all of
Angry
us
dishes.
are. Yeah, all of us are, right? So we know with our kids, we can't expect them to be regulating here if they're not regulated here. We know that they're at risk to have a meltdown if they, many of our kids, if they're tired, if they're hungry, if for whatever reason they're not physiologically regulated at that particular time. And then moving on to regulating our thinking, we have to be able to regulate our emotions with that thought process, which is kind of, that part of the brain that helps us to rationalize and think. And then Liz is looking at relationships with others. So we're really going to focus in on this tonight, but I know Beth's going to jump in on the other part.
Every time
Because I forgot to mention it last time.
That's okay. And just to tag on what Susan's just saying, like, would you not say, I'm just thinking this thought as you're talking, like, when your child is, in pain or tired or hungry, like, you know what to do, right? You know what they need. Or when they have like a problem, logical problem, we know what to do to help them. But would you say, are we kind of in agreement when the emotion's big, that's the trickier one, right? Just like a consensus, right? So that's part of our motive to kind of hone in on that tonight. But so often I've taught, we hear from people who are working with really, when their kids or whoever are having a really hard time with emotion and maybe really angry. So many times I've heard, really honest comments like, I'm really worried my child maybe doesn't have empathy because they're angry so much, right? And so it's really helpful to understand it's not that the child doesn't have empathy when they're in the moment and they have murderous rage, which is real, especially in little kids, right? It's not that they don't have empathy, it's just empathy is one of the highest level cognitive skills we have, the perceived experience of the other, right? Like that's a really high cognitive frontal brain thing that we have. So when this is off, we can't access it. So it's just worth saying, right? And then of course when we get them to the logical place, then of course that's when they can go and do the, oh, I feel for it or whatever. So building, this is Susan coined this term and I love it. Building regulation through relationship. Because the cool thing is that we literally cannot regulate, we cannot learn to have an emotion in a healthy way until somebody helps us do it. That's like a human thing, right? It's probably ever been on planet in that sense, who has, right? So this is an important slide though, and it's also a golden nugget. Because the point of this slide is that you are absolutely the expert on your children, and you do so many things at work, and some flavors and some things that I talked about and that we've talked about, you're already doing. So the point of this slide is I'm going to show you a way to work through emotion in the moment, but take any nugget of wisdom that works for you, okay? Because you absolutely are the experts. So here's a question. So I'm going to ask you to kind of answer a few questions I have. So when your child comes to you with tears in their eyes and says, I am a loser and nobody likes me, what is your first reaction? Like, don't even think, just say,
You're not a loser.
you're not a loser, right? You're awesome, right? Don't feel that way, right? And why do we react like that? Like you just say, like we don't want them to feel bad. Exactly, yeah, go to the next slide, because you just said it. We don't want them to feel bad, right? And I mean, seeing them in distress in front of us feels pretty yucky, like we don't like it. And we absolutely don't, that's not true. We don't believe it too. And we definitely don't want to make them feel worse, right? We want to pull them out of that. And the kicker is that culturally, we haven't been taught as a culture to respond to that vulnerable emotion in front of us. All of our parents, a different parent-wise, maybe we haven't, but as a culture, generally we have not. The next two slides, just click through, these are just kind of messages, mainstream media, like Hakuna Matata, no worries, don't be upset, just no worries, right? Suck it up, buttercup, boys, girls, don't cry, right? Like, no wonder that's hard, right? But I want to ask you to humor me for a minute. So actually, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, but that's weird, so I'm not going to look at you, okay? I promise, this is not either. Okay, so close your eyes, and we're not looking at you. And I'm going to give you a memory, if you don't already have it, okay? So I want you to picture yourself, if you can, when you're much younger, when you're a little person in grade school, early primary grades, and you're in school and you're at recess, and you remember what that recess yard looked like, and you're with your friends who you absolutely adore. You love these friends. These are your first friends, and you love these friends. And this day turns out to be the worst day ever in your school memories, because on this day your friends say they don't want to play with you, and they reject you hard. They leave you. And so you are left alone, rejected, and it feels awful. You have never felt this bad in your life. And so you walk away alone in that schoolyard, and when you look up, walking, you see an adult that you trust. And so you go to that adult, and with tears in your eyes, heavy shoulders, and you tell this teacher what just happened. And she says to you, oh, honey, those kids are just being silly. You know you are really awesome. You know what? I bet they're just jealous. Open your eyes. What's your first reaction when you hear that? I don't believe you. That's not what I just experienced. What else? Like you don't look like it felt good on your faces. Something didn't feel good about it.
You didn't understand it.
Yeah, you didn't understand what I was saying. They may feel a bit dismissed. They may feel annoyed. Yeah, because we'll all react a little bit. Right. Or maybe like, what's wrong with me? I thought I felt that way, but that's confusing. Because without even knowing, I mean, that was I'm just giving you a memory, but without even really knowing, what were you looking for? Validation. Right. Isn't that crazy? You were looking, imagine she said, oh, honey, that is so hard. You love these friends. Oh, this is a really hard day. You did not want this to happen today, so let's talk about it. Like, can you imagine? Oh, right? But why did she react like that? Because she didn't want you to feel bad. She knows you are awesome. Right? She definitely didn't want to make you feel worse. So no wonder she reacted like that, right? So that's what I want to share with you. How did we get here? There's fascinating research and books on this. There's one book called The History of Emotion. It's really neat. But historically, intergenerationally, all this stuff has happened that has really made us do funky things with anger and sadness, vulnerability especially, and shame, right? And the funkiest part is that in general, culture doesn't teach us to meet those needs for those emotions. So that's what I want to share with you, okay? Because the thing about emotions, although culturally it's kind of like emotions are, ooh, yikes, although it's shifting, it is shifting, but right, especially the negative ones, but we know emotions are actually critical. Emotions are how we are all alive today, right? If we didn't express how we felt, we wouldn't have had food early on when we couldn't talk, right? Emotions are critical. So I want to share, so if you did, you saw Inside Out? Inside Out? Inside Out? Yeah, it's a great movie if you haven't seen it for your kids. They got it right. They did consult with some neuro people who got emotions in the brain, so it's really neat because we know, we think about babies and little people, they only have so many main emotions, core emotions, right? They don't have anxiety, they don't have depression, those are more secondary later, mixed up, but they only have so many basic emotions. They have happy, of course, joy, they have angry, they have sad, and they have scared, right? And so babies have these emotions, and each of these emotions have a very basic need. You know when a baby's sad, you automatically just comfort the baby. Babies are easy to talk about it because it's so easy, right? Or scared, like legitimate, you say the right, exactly what Susan said, saber-tooth tiger jumps in, we need safety, right? And anger. Anger is the interesting one, because anger especially is hard in our culture, right? So say, I keep using the same example, sorry if you've heard it before a million times, Susan, but Johnny and Sammy in the sandbox, little Johnny, little Sammy, and Johnny brought his favorite toy truck to school today, and Sammy took it. What's Johnny gonna do? Pop him? Give it back, right? Because anger needs to say, stop, that's not okay with me. Anger needs to set a boundary, and it wants to feel validated, actually, right? So this is neat, because we know that babies and little people have these core emotions, but they literally, so if we look at their brain on an fMRI, which can scan the firing in the brain, we can see the core emotion, but they literally cannot meet that need. They literally don't have the neural pathway that knows to seek comfort when they're sad, or knows to set a boundary when they're angry, until we literally help them do it in the moment. And there are so many things that can complicate that process that don't have to do with parenting, and I'll put this in as a disclaimer kind of, because, can you go to the next slide? Thanks. Because as parents, oh, next slide. I think I kind of said this. Yeah, go ahead. As parents, kind of our middle name is guilt. Oh gosh, I didn't know that, right? There are so many things that can mix that up, that sort of learning how to meet my emotional need, like super feeler personalities. I don't want to get upset because I might upset mommy, even though mommy's fine. It's just this like hyper sense, right? Or, you know, like experiences, like there are so many different things that can make that tricky. But what we know is that emotional development, exactly what Pat said earlier, what Susan was talking about, emotional development is about learning how to have the emotion and the emotion not have me. That is regulation, right? Learning how to have the emotion not have me. And our kids cannot do it when they're born. They're not supposed to, right? And emotional development doesn't quite age like I say cognitive years or IQ. Like, I mean, it can get kind of stuck, or it can look younger than the child's age. You know, if you have a 10-year-old, but when they have a big outburst, they look kind of 2, and that's okay. We can catch it up, right? But sometimes it gets a little off kilter, right? And that's okay. We can catch it up. There's lots of reasons why. But we can literally teach them how to have that emotion in the moment. And the neat thing about teaching emotion regulation, which is funny, because emotional, as you said, emotion is not logical, right? Think about the brain. It is very valid. But I mean, we all do these things that, you know, I don't like that I do it, but I keep doing it, but I don't know why I do it. Because it's emotional, it's not logical. We just can't change emotions with logic. We change them when we're meeting that emotion in the moment. Okay, and I'm going to show you a really simple way of how to do it, right? Which is what we're infusing through our board. Okay. Oh, but I'm going to show you a video first. It's like less than 3 minutes. Can you hit the lights, Jonathan? No, thanks, Jane. And this video gives you the spirit of emotion coaching without actually being emotion coaching, but it just makes us real for us as adults.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. I had it, yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. At least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Right? Kind of funny, but very, very real. And it's that connection with our kids that builds their ability to learn how to do emotion, right? By the way, of course, having empathy, we have to be somewhat regulated ourselves to be able to do this, right? So I'm going to show you this way of emotion coaching, but sometimes when you think about yourself in the moment, you're like, well, why I'm too worked up? It's totally okay, because there really is a great line. It's not what happens, it's what happens next. So you can always go back to get on track. Okay, so when you're faced with a big emotion, and I think we'll use anger because it's a good one to use. Everybody sees it sometimes, right? Yes? Yes. Okay, so when you're faced with that big angry, okay, of course safety first. I always use this example of my daughter when she was a little bit younger biting me. It's not like I'm going to be like, Olivia, you're so angry, bite me again. Like, that wouldn't feel good, right? I hurt mommy. No. So for safety first, you may not bite me. I think kids need boundaries as much as they need everything else, right? That's as much emotional need as anything else. And then, in-walk emotion coaching. It sounds fluffy, and I swear it's not, especially when you're validating anger. Stereotypically, men are really good at validating anger, because men stereotypically are good at assertiveness. Totally stereotypical, and I'm in a stereotypical relationship. I had to learn how to do assertiveness, right, for anger. So what it looks like is when we see the big angry, right, attend, notice it. And we're talking about anger, but notice, I encourage you, obviously it's hard to not notice sometimes, but notice if it's angry or sad. Notice which one. It might look like a big mess of everything, but pick one. And actually pick anger. If you're wrong, your child will redirect you, right? Because anger often is a harder one. And then label it. There's really neat neuroscience in the line called name it, attainment. Pat probably, did he say that? He said that, right? When we just say the emotion word that person is experiencing, it starts to regulate the brain. It starts to build the neural pathway. That's what I needed. It's really neat. And then validate the experience. And this is really hard. And often what we didn't receive, because you're validating something that often the behavior wasn't okay. You might not totally not agree with it. In fact, you might have no idea what it's about, right? So no problem, right? Right. But this is the thing. When we're talking, let's use the example of angry. And we remember what the need for anger, what does anger need to do? Tell me here.
It needs to stop.
Yeah, it needs to feel like it did this. Although we want to teach it in a way that they say adaptive, as in it's going to work for the child in their life, right? Because they can't go plowing everybody. That won't work for them, right? So right now, if they have big explosive anger, right? It's like they have a 16-lane highway in their brain because emotion fires first, as Susan was saying, before thought. 16-lane highway in their brain of a neural pathway that's just this big explosive anger, blah, and then it goes back into like probably some shame and resentment, maybe, right? And then next time it comes out, blah, like it's like the only neural pathway they have, right? And so in the moment, when we go attend, label, validate the experience, what we're actually doing is we're meeting the emotional need. And when we're validating anger, we actually need to use quite an assertive voice because comfort is for sad, so soothing really makes angry mad. Right? So we need to use an assertive voice. And can you go to the next slide? So for example, say Johnny in his toy truck, right? And he's so mad, he plowed Sammy because Sammy took his truck. Johnny, I can understand, the words don't matter so much, it's more what you say, not what you convey. So, like, Johnny, you're so frustrated. But what do you want to say now? I just kind of think. Can you go to the next slide? But, so, here's the thing. Change but to because. It's so simple. If you remember anything, remember that. But it is so effective. Because you love this toy truck. We say 3 to 5 becauses, which is not always easy. Or ands. Because you love this truck, and because you really were waiting for a long time to play with this truck, and because it was not an easy morning. No wonder this is so frustrating. And so what's happening in that moment, and say Johnny always reacts with plowing people when he's angry, right? What's happening in that moment, it's like that was a 16-lane highway of plowing people, but in that moment, it's building a new neural pathway of healthy anger. And he literally experiences the emotion. Yeah, you're right. That's exactly how I feel. Right? And it's kind of like when we build a new, healthy, adaptive neural pathway, it's sort of like with an, I'm doing this for a reason, with a machete knife cutting the path through really dense forest. Like, it's going to take time, but it feels good because it's what the innate need is. It needs to feel validated, and it feels good to assertively say what I need, right? But yes, I said tone and volume is really important, meaning not volume, so much more tone. Like, so I it's a really important tip, but if you bring comfort and soothing to sad, or to anger, it's really going to make angry. Oh, that is so frustrating. Like, you know, you're talking, right? That is so frustrating, right? I gave an example. Last night we did this talk at another high school, and just that night, my 2-year-old, who is a super feeling being, she is like probably me, as a 2-year-old, right? And she couldn't, what was it? Her Christmas pajama pants. Oh, I couldn't find them, and I was rushing, and I couldn't find them. She wanted her Christmas pajama pants, or they were dirty, I couldn't find them. She was like, you know, so mad, and I'm like, this is so frustrating. I use frustrating, but you can use any synonym for anger you want. That has to be for anger, right? That's not upset, be specific, right? This is so frustrating. You love those pajamas, you love your Christmas pajama pants, and you just want to find your pajama pants right now. She's 2, right? And yeah, and I'll just wear my Euro pants instead. Right? But I never could have got her to move to her aerial pants. Ever. Trust me. Like, you don't know this kid. Like, really. Right? But the only way to get her to that logical place was actually not to bring her to the logical place. So, right? So we have this idea of fixing by inserting our logic, which of course is important. But the amazing thing, so it's like I'm encouraging you to redefine the fix a little bit, right? So that part of the fix is helping them have the emotion, because we have kids who have the answers already. It's just they can't access the logical answers when the emotion is so big, right?
Getting rid of the emotion so they can access the logic.
Yes, and it's not like, well, it is like getting rid, it's like helping them have it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel good to have that, helping them have it, right? Building that new neural pathway. So I think I have time, but what's the next slide, Susan? Oh, so this is just me. I've already given you the example. Go on. Because. Oh, and this is the logical support that we do after, right? I just said, right? One more slide. What's the next one? Right. So I guess you got the spirit of what I was just telling you about my daughter's Christmas pajama pants. If you attach yourself to the process of emotion coaching, you would be surprised at how fast the outcome you're looking for comes. Like, really. If you don't look so, like, if it's like not drive-by empathy. Oh, you're so frustrated, but can you just wear your aerial pants? Like, that wouldn't work, right? Because you're so frustrated, because, and there's a lot of becauses for this little girl, because she is a super feeling being, right? Right? But that is what it takes for her, right, to get there, right? But this, and you know what, there's so much to this, but it is mental health prevention, because we know so much about mental health troubles that kids run into is because they tend to avoid emotion for lots of reasons. They do other things to avoid, right? So we're actually helping them have it, right? So can I give a really quick example? I think I can. I want to do it because I feel like you would like it. And I think it'll make it real for you too. I mean, I know you're already really getting this. And I'm sure to different extents and variations you do this, right? So like I say, any nugget. But I want to ask you to humor me. I'm going to give you an example. And I want you to pretend I'm your partner, okay? I gave this I did before. Did I do that? Yes, I did. I want you to pretend I'm your partner, okay? And say you have a really big day. Okay. Okay. Say you have a really, really big day today, and you know you have to do the whole work thing, and then you have to get the groceries, and then you have to get the kids, and then you have to get the kids off to sports. And I didn't offer to help you, and that's fairly typical, okay? So off you go to your day, and you get on the car, you go. Oh my gosh, you already spilled the coffee. But you go. And then you're in a little fender bender that was totally not your fault, but the person that you hit or hit you is not a very decent person. And then you keep going, you get to your work, and just thing after thing goes wrong, like something you worked hard on was destroyed, and you kind of got your wrist slapped, or something you really didn't intend, like just a really bad day, right? One of the worst days you can remember. And then you go, you rush, you go to the grocery store, get the groceries, get home, you know you have to get the kids somewhere, but first you have to make dinner, right? So you get in and you rush, you bring in the bags up by yourself to the kitchen, and one of the bags breaks open, and it's the bag of milk, and the milk spills everywhere, even under the fridge. And you're like, ah! Like if you swear, you are swearing, okay? And in I walk, right? And I don't do this, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? It's just milk. How's your anger? Yeah, I know. You see in your eyes, right? So rewind, right? Milk is spilled everywhere, anger up to here, right? Like this is not your day. And I walk in, and it's genuine, and you can trust me, right? And I go, whoa, you are pissed. Like, whoa, you did not need this right now. You're like, yeah, worst day ever, blah, 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 blah. And you tell me a little bit, and I say, no way, you worked so hard on that thing, I can't believe that happened, I can't believe you were blamed for that, you did not need this, here, let me help you. Like, if it's genuine and you can trust me, how's your anger? Like, it was not about the milk. Right? So that's what we have to remember. The anger, I'm using anger this whole presentation, we can do this for any other emotion. But the neural pathway for that emotion, angry neural pathway, is the angry neural pathway. So it's like we have to help our kids do it in a way that works, right? By the way, this also works on, adults our age, right? Not just kids, right? Because it's actually a human need. So I think we're at the end, right? Yeah, let's just go to the next because we're at the end. So remember, mom, dad, grandma, whoever, grandpa, when I get frustrated, whiny, demanding, out of control, my behavior actually means that I need you. I need you to be calm, be kind, take charge, like bigger, stronger, wiser, and help me with this feeling so that I can get back to what I was doing. Over time and with your support, I won't need you as much or as often, I swear. Right? Okay, and then that's it, I think, right? So 8:02. So, I mean, it's 8 o'clock, so that's when we said we would finish. So I'm totally open to, we are open to questions, but feel free to go.
What's the support aspect? Sorry, no, I totally jumped in. Sorry.
No, good, I know, I talked like a
all that I
million.
get, and what was the support?
Yeah,
I
you know
there,
what?
And I was like, now what?
I want to change it, because before I used to say fix. Yeah.
This is just a handout I'm going to...
The support access, the support part, and I used to call it the fix, I put it in quotes. That's the logical problem solving that we would have done anyway. Right? Like your child doesn't have her normal pajama pants, well, why don't you just review those pants? That'd be the support. So it's the problem solving piece. On that handout, I think I may have called it the fix. Right, let me see, what did I say? Meet the need. Yeah, that's all emotion coaching. And what I did, because meeting the need and validating happens hand in hand, I took meet the need off because I was breaking it down for theoretically, right? So, but when you're validating with anger with an assertive voice, you are meeting the need. Because the need is the punch, and it feels good to have assertive validation. That is me punching. Thank you. Yeah, that's how I feel. Right? The need for comfort. So providing comfort through validation or a hug, right? Like that is meeting the need. If you're funny, use humor. Right? The words don't matter so much. It's how you convey it. Right? So yeah, so support is just what we do anyway with the problem solving.
I was just thinking, I don't know, but I was thinking most of us are, maybe I shouldn't say most because I shouldn't apply to everybody, but I guess you're right, I'm thinking what you're saying, we're often trying to shut down the feeling. So that's why the tantrum's continuing, right? Because we're basically saying, this is ridiculous, as you're ringing with stop it.
Well, let's
And so
speak to
then
why
it's
we
just-
do that, right?
Yeah.
Because in our deep down emotional brains that we hardly have any logical access to, emotionally, we just know big emotion hurts.
Yeah.
So we just know we have to shut it down.
Yeah.
Because culturally, we didn't get that message I'm giving you tonight,
Mhm.
right?
It's true, and I go right
Yeah.
to timeout. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's
of
it, go
course.
to timeout.
Right?
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
it's like emotionally, unconsciously, it's like, I don't want you to feel pain.
Yeah.
Because I know that pain. And I'll do anything to not let you know that pain. Right?
Or you can see it escalating, so you're
Yeah.
like not wanting them to work themselves up more, right?
Of course,
Like,
of
yeah.
course. So the point of this is to raise your confidence with helping our kids. Truly, that is the point, right? With helping our kids work through big emotions, because culturally nobody did this for us. So this is new and different. And there's this really cool side effect of doing this. It kind of helps us too. Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah?
Thank you.
So, like, but as long as there's.
I'm all over. I'm looking. Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
I
Go.
can't see hands, so I thought nobody
Sorry.
else had their hand up, I
Yeah,
apologize.
that's my fault.
If they're safe, and even if they may be escalating a little bit, but you know that, like, there's never been a pattern of, like, anything, like, hurting themselves or anything
Yeah.
like that. Like, I find, like, I just give the time. Like, we'll work through it,
Yes.
but right now, I can't.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because I said, like, jokingly, we're not robots, but it's so true, right? So there really is a beautiful line, if you can remember. It's not about what happens, it's what happens next. Even if the next is an hour later, a day later, a week later, or a year later. If it's a big deal to the child, of whatever, if it was a thing, or if it's just they had a big upset about something, you can always bring it up and do these steps. It's so powerful, because they feel the feeling again, and then you go boom, boom, boom. When of course, like us having awareness of how we're feeling is a gift to our kids, right? So that we know when we need to step back. And I also would tell parents especially, because like I said, guilt is our middle name. If we're doing this 30% of the time, we're winning, okay? Because that's real, right?
And that's where that social gets into it, like if you're out and you're like, you get those judgments from other people or even maybe your parents or whatever like that, like, why aren't you
Absolutely.
reprimanding, why aren't
Absolutely.
you saying?
So
kind of,
really
like-
hold on to that thing. It's not what happens, it's what happens next. In the I have seen amazing healing happen and it's years later. It's not what happens, it's what happens next. Yeah? Okay, yes?
I have also a 13-year-old, but the 7-year-old's actually easier in the fact that, anyways, she'll tell me.
Yes.
Why did, how